Greetings, agents. This is Private Boulders, the mediocre gamer, and this is the Division 2. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my content. If you find it useful or helpful, please remember to like and or subscribe, as that will help grow my channel. I hope that this video finds you well today. Today's topic is the gear set by the name of Negotiator's Dilemma. As a newer player, you may or may not have used this. I'm going to show you a build, the build that I'm using in the footage, that is very easy to put together and very easy to use and does very well in heroic content. Negotiator's Dilemma is obviously a DPS focused gear set that has an emphasis on crit damage and taking out groups of enemies. The idea being that you mark up some enemies and then those marked enemies take a proportion of your damage output. So if we have a look at the build, or let's have a look at Negotiator's Dilemma first. So 2 pieces gives you plus 15% to critical hit chance, and 3 pieces gives you plus 20% to critical hit damage. So a very easy build to max out your crit hit chance, the cap being 60%, and also, a very easy way of maximizing or at least increasing the amount of critical hit damage that you're doing. Now, the 4th piece gives the ability called Hostile Negotiations. So critical hits mark enemies for 20 seconds, up to 3 marks total. When you critically hit a marked enemy, all other marked enemies take 60% of the damage dealt. Whenever a marked enemy dies, gain plus 2% critical hit damage, stacking up to 20 times or until combat ends. So yeah, basically what you do is you enter combat, you start shooting at enemies. When you see the little Negotiator's Dilemma logo above them, move on to another enemy and mark it as well. And then once you've done that, move on to a 3rd enemy and mark it up as well. You probably want to make your 3rd enemy maybe an elite, the guys that are yellow, as they tend to last a bit longer. Obviously they've got more health and more armor. So you focus fire on that 3rd enemy being an elite, or maybe a chunga or something like that, or a named hostile or something like that. And then you just focus fire on them, and then as the other tagged enemies start dying, then focus on another enemy, and target another enemy, wait till you get a crit hit on it, and then go back to the that named mob or that elite enemy that you've got, and you basically rinse and repeat that until combat ends, basically. So yeah, it is a really efficient way of taking out groups of enemies. So I'm running the knee pads, the holster, the gloves, and the backpack. So the backpack talent, that is called Critical Measures. So that increases hostile negotiations damage to additional marked enemies from 60% to 112%. So I think, for me anyway, that's a pretty good backpack talent to have. Just because you're almost doing double the amount of damage to those marked enemies. I mean, if you wanted to, you could probably run with a different backpack, and maybe run something like Vigilance or something like that. But just bear in mind, if you're running Vigilance, you probably need to run a shield, because as you know, if you're running Vigilance, if you take damage, it cancels the buff. So if you're running a shield, taking damage to your shield doesn't actually cancel Vigilance. So you could run maybe a mask, gloves, knee pads, holster, and you could maybe run vigilance on your backpack, and then maybe something like obliterate on your chest piece. And you know, if you're doing that, you probably want to look at maybe running Seska Grupo for the extra crit hit chance and extra crit hit damage. Um, the chest talent for Negotiator's Dilemma increases the number of enemies that you can mark from 3 to 5. I find that I very rarely get to 5 marked targets consistently anyway. So I don't run the chest piece. I think it's probably more worthwhile running a chest piece with a damage talent. Although you may like running, you may find that you like running the 5. You know, the chest talent where you get mark 5 enemies. But for me, and in this footage, I'm running the backpack, but not the chest. The mask I'm running is a Grupo mask. So that gives us plus 13% critical hit damage. It also allows us to max out our critical hit chance and critical hit damage a bit more. And I'm running a Seska chest with Obliterate. So that one piece of Seska gives us plus 8% critical hit chance. And Obliterate gives us the talent critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 20 times. Yeah, so when you're at full stacks, you're basically doing an extra 20% weapon damage. The weapon I am running in the footage is a FAMAS 2010 with the talent Killer. So Killer is killing an enemy with a critical hit grants plus 70% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. I think that pairs really nicely with Negotiator's Dilemma. As you're already fairly high with your critical hit chance, you've already got a fair bit of critical hit damage accumulated, I guess, from running the build. So yeah, you know, killing an enemy with a crit hit, that extra plus 70% critical hit damage is really going to come in handy. Don't forget you've got 4 mod slots on there to also increase your critical hit chance and critical hit damage. I've got 2 crit hit chance mods and a critical hit damage mods, and I'm also running the extended mag, so I've got an extra 15 rounds. You may not want to run FAMAS for whatever reason, but I would suggest whatever weapon you run, make sure it's got a relatively high RPM. Like, I probably wouldn't suggest running a shotgun or a marksman's rifle or anything like that, but if you wanted to run, you know, obviously another assault rifle, or maybe an SMG, or even a rifle, make sure it does have a fairly high RPM so that you have more of a chance of landing those critical hits and getting the Negotiator's Dilemma talent to proc, and also to get Killer to proc. Also for the on your whatever your weapon of choice, whatever that may be, just make sure that you put damage to targets out of cover on there, so that you're, you know, maximizing that, or you're getting a bit more extra damage, because most of the hostiles that you are in conflict with will be out of cover, so it makes sense to put something on there to take advantage of that. The specialization I'm running is Gunner. So there's a few reasons there. We get 10% armor on kill. We get 10% weapon handling when not moving. Every third reload is 50% faster. And rate of fire is increased by 5% on kill for 5 seconds. So there's some really good abilities there that come with Gunner that really work well with this build as well. And don't forget, if you're whatever weapon you are running, whether it be an assault rifle or an SMG or whatever, just make sure that your passive damage talent is maxed out, so you're getting an increased 15% damage for that. Skills. So in the footage, I'm running a decoy, um, just so that the enemies are focused on the decoy rather than me, which allows me to land shots. And I'm also running a reviver hive, as me being me, I tend to get killed a lot. So yeah, it's like my next best friend, the reviver hive. Um, but as I said, if you want to run vigilance on a backpack, then you would probably want to run a shield. You could also run, right foam or something like that if you want to. Um, you hit an enemy with the foam, and that locks them in place out of cover, making it easier to target them and get the mark. Or maybe even an assault turret or assault drone. They act as good distraction as well, um, for hostiles to focus on. While they're not focusing on you, it makes you easier to target them. Yeah, so it is a very versatile build, um, and I would recommend that you run 6 red cores with this so that you're maximizing your weapon damage. And it is very capable in heroic content, so even as a solo player, you should be able to clear heroic content with this build with no problems. So there you have it. What are your thoughts, agents? Do you use Negotiator's Dilemma? If so, what kind of build do you run? Oh, one thing I did mention is, this is obviously targeted at people, at players that don't have exotics, but if you do have Coyote's Mask, then um, pop the Coyote's Mask in there, because it runs very well with this build as well, because it has also quite a lot of crit hit chance and crit hit damage that you can add in. But if not, this is my recommendation for the build. No exotics required, and you'll still do pretty well in heroic and also in a team environment. Um, so yeah, leave a comment. What are your thoughts? I'd be interested to know how you feel about this build. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, agents, stay safe out there and take care.